So, Mr. J. Hussey, CEO of SRI North America, president of our search team, and is it fair to say 30-year veteran in the technology industry or in and around the technology?
Yeah, well, that would be belying my age, so I'll be careful about that. But yes, let's say it's been a long time.
So, in the context of SRI turning 20, we thought it would be fun to take a glance back with some of our industry veterans at some of the big changes in the industries we focus on in the last 20 years, and also a little look forward at what might be coming. So, I've got just a few questions for you. So, what event, change, or kind of big creation would you say has had the most profound impact on the technology industry in the last 20 years?
I'll start by saying that, as the classic aphorism goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I think back to 20 years ago, it's a turn of a new century. I was leading a pretty well-known technology services business, working with clients who are all grappling with the question of how do we digitize our businesses? How do we start this digital transformation of our businesses? And it's fascinating because 20 years on now, in a different profession, I'm having exactly the same conversation with so many of my clients saying, how do we accelerate our digital transformation? When you think about it, where they were 20 years ago is vastly different than where they are today. But this idea of the technology landscape and the way consumers and businesses consume technology is changing so quickly, companies never really get ahead of the curve. So the digital transformation that started 20 years ago or more is still underway. And I anticipate 20 years from now, we'll still be talking about, oh my gosh, how do we accelerate what we're doing to keep it as close to the leading edge of technology advance as we can?
And look, the pandemic, we can't get away from it. We have to have a question on it. What do you think the impact of the pandemic has had on the technology industry?
In some ways, it's been both a boon and a bane. It's been a boon because it has shown a very bright light on how important these technologies are, not only to our business lives, but our social lives. This conversation being a great example of this, right? Who knew that we would spend our entire day on video calls, and who knew that we could run businesses essentially without direct human contact? That's because of the technology. On the flip side, I think this has also shown a light on how central the big technology companies have become, not only to our business lives or our personal lives, but to society as a whole. And that's obviously bringing a whole new level of scrutiny about, well, how much power is too much power to be in the hands of a handful of global behemoth tech companies. I think there's still a lot to be sorted through there politically, socially, in terms of how we as consumers think about privacy and what we're willing to give to these big tech companies in exchange for indispensable services like the one we're using to have this conversation.
And taking a look forward, what do you think is the next big change which is going to have the most impact on the technology industry?
It's interesting because, again, being around at the dawn of the dinosaurs, and seeing how the first wave of technology in the mid 1990s to early 2000s, it was all about getting businesses online. It was all about e-commerce, digital media, digital engagement on web platforms. We've seen the migration from web to mobile. I think the next big thing, this is not a stunning insight, is going to be machine learning and artificial intelligence. That is the brave new frontier. And again, I think that's coming with huge opportunities and a ton of risk. Like so many things, or in so many cases, the technology moves faster than our ability to really know how to use it in some cases. And AI is a great example of that. Terrific potential, but there are untold, unintended consequences that could come from that technology in terms of societal rearrangement, job loss. I'm not worried about Terminator-like rise of Skynet, but I am worried about, again, how slowly these technologies could take over things that we didn't really want them to take over.
And how can we preserve, or what can companies do to sort of preserve or mitigate against that risk, do you think?
Well, I think there's a big leadership challenge involved here, because to date, machine learning AI has been driven by scientists, as you would expect. But I think there needs to be a counterbalance. Ethicists, philosophers, leaders who can incorporate a humanistic view of how to use these technologies, how to use them for good, and avoid them becoming evil. So, in a nod to all of us with the liberal arts backgrounds, I think there's going to be a huge need for the poets and the philosophers and the ethicists to be involved in technology leadership in ways that we really haven't seen yet in our society.
Final question. Which device could you not live without?
Oh gosh. Well, we all live our entire lives, again, personal and professional, on our mobile phones. So that's the obvious answer. The personal answer is I'm an avid cyclist, and sitting here now in the midst of a snowstorm in Boston, my indispensable device is my smart bike trainer that's connected to a service, and luckily a client of ours, called Zwift, the online cycling community. And for me, in the winter months like this, that is my indispensable piece of tech.
Great insight. Mr. Hussey, thank you very much.
Amy, thank you.